So, uh, um, thank you for inviting me to give this short presentation. My name is Justin Gosses, and as I said, I'm a contractor that supports the Open Innovation Program that runs sites that supply a lot of NASA's data to the public. And today I'll try to give a brief tour of the NASA data universe, and I stutter a bit. So if there's anything that you don't understand, put a question in the chat, and I'll try to go back and cover it again. So first up in this talk, we'll give a summary of the various websites that the Open Innovation Program runs. Next, I'll talk a little bit about why there are so many different sites that you might go to in order to find NASA data. And I'll talk a bit about how data is harvested from the smaller sites to some of the larger sites, and there are a range of different open NASA sites. Tips on searching for data, and one example from the current NASA Space App challenges. As I mentioned before, I spent part of my time supporting the Open Innovation Program, which is run out of NASA's Office of the Chief Information Officer, and is concerned with agency-wide open sharing of public data. Open.nasa.gov is a central page for information engagement that crosses the 4 other sites. It is general information about how NASA fulfills open government mandates, as well as some news and blog post type things. API.nasa.gov is a pass-through service that we use to promote several NASA APIs. We currently have 17 active APIs listed on this site, including astronomy picture of the day, near Earth objects, and a couple different Mars rover APIs. Code.nasa.gov lists all the code projects that have gone through the official NASA software release process to be made public. And so we currently have 555 open source projects that are listed on code.nasa.gov. Data.nasa.gov is one of the largest, most successful sites, with nearly 20,000 unique visitors per month and more than 40,000 different data sets. A small percentage of these are actually hosted directly on data.nasa.gov, but most of them exist on different data sites and are just linked to from data.nasa.gov. So the Open Innovation data sites come together through a large number of people. The core team is quite small, with 2.5 developers, and I'm like half, because I split my time between this and a different project. Most of the work is actually done by the dataset suppliers and administrators of the other NASA data sites that push their data sets to data.nasa.gov. Additionally, one of our sites, API.nasa.gov, as well as code.nasa.gov, are actually managed and run from public repositories on github.com, where we accept issues and pull requests from the general public. In the next section, I'm going to talk about why there's so many different websites that hold NASA data and how they all kind of fit together. So this is my why so many sites slide. It could be like whole presentation in itself, but I try to kind of condense things here into like kind of 3 parts. So there's like 3 competing forces that tend to create all these different sites. First, the US Congress and the White House play a role by creating mandates that specify data and code must be released to the public in certain ways and certain sites called certain things, and harvestable from those sites to other larger sites. Second, a lot of NASA data is actually created by, analyzed by, or in some way connected to grants given to university scientists and labs. And it is very common for those science grants to come with strings attached that say the data sets created in the process of doing that science has to be placed in specific science archives that are specific for that science field. And then third, a lot of this data doesn't exist as isolated data files by itself, but is actually created or sometimes consumed by other programmatic things, which means it has to be put in places and put in forms that allow those tasks to be fulfilled. And so that like creates some of the smaller sites you might find around. Okay. Apparently, can someone see all the slides? I got comments that the slides aren't moving. Can you see this the slide that says mandates and requirements?
Yeah.
Yes, I can see.
Okay. Okay, great. Thank you. So yeah, going and can you see one that says harvesting relationships now?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, great. All right. Okay. Thanks for the confirmation. So additionally, many NASA sites that host data have harvesting relationships with one another. So in general, more specific data hosting sites, smaller ones, get harvested up into larger, more general data sites, with the last one at the end of the chain being data.gov, which currently has 236,000 data sets. So although theoretically all the data sets should exist in data.gov, some of them don't get harvested up. So you won't find everything just by searching in data.gov. And also, it's worth noting that sometimes it's actually simpler to find things if you search on sites that just hold a certain type of like a certain type of data set, because the like search interfaces on those specialized sites are built for that type of data set. This next slide is titled domain-specific NASA data sites. So I have here a small selection of domain-specific data sites. Sites 1 through 6 here are for specific types of science data. So these are some of the science archives I've mentioned previously. And then sites 7 through 9 are for documents, studies, patents, reports, and regulations as well. And then 10 and 11 on this list hold Earth imagery and climate data, which is produced through collaborations between NASA and USGS, which is the United States Geological Survey, and NOAA, which is the National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Agency. And so because some of those data products are produced through collaborations between NASA and those other federal agencies, you have to go to those other federal agency data sites to find those files sometimes. And then in the next section, I'm going to talk a little bit about some tips for finding NASA data sets. So first, the most useful data sets are typically, the most often used data sets are typically the simplest ones to work with. So the ones I'm showing on the slide here are the most used ones from the open innovation sites. And a point of this is that when you're searching on data.nasa.gov, the default behavior is when you search for a term, it'll give you back the files that most closely match that term. But you can actually sort those results a couple of different ways, and including sorting them by like which of them were like downloaded the like most often, and I find that that can sometimes be a very good way to look at the results they get back from data.nasa.gov. Second, starter code is a great way to get things done quickly. A lot of you have to figure out how to download data, filter NASA data, and process it. If you can find someone's code and how they have already done the first few steps of a project, that can potentially save you a lot of time. Just searching through github.com with NASA as a search term will give you a lot of stuff back. Just searching for NASA itself on github.com will give you over 10,000 different code repositories that are tagged with NASA somehow. There's also a datasets.org on GitHub that is a bunch of people that work just with NASA data. So that's another good one to check out for examples, as well as to help you think about what type of project to do. And then the box in the lower left corner has a site that a member of the public built, which lets you search through all the past projects for space apps challenges. And so if you're like working on a space apps challenge that was also used in past space apps, looking at what other like projects have put together it can give you some very strong clues of how you might work on the project that you're going to build. Oh,
Sure, it'll be nice, yeah.
Yeah, and then on the right-hand side of that slide, I've got some links to two different web pages that toast a lot of live and forkable on JavaScript code. So both of those pages have search functionality in there, so you can yes, actually I will share those slides right now. Let me think if you go to...
I can share the slides in our group.
Okay, yes, thank you. I appreciate that, yeah. And so there's starter code here that will help you work with a lot of NASA data sets, and so like that can potentially really shorten the time required to work on our project. And then more abstractly, it's worth considering what type of search you're doing. You could either already know a certain data set exists, in which case you're more finding in your search, or if you do not know what data sets exist, but you kind of want to find out like what sort of things are available within a certain concept. So those are kind of two different types of searching. For the finding case, where you know a type of data set which is called a certain thing almost certainly exists somewhere, data.nasa.gov is a good place to start, as it relies on string matching. So if you know a data set has a term in its title and you know that data set probably exists, that's a good way to find it. However, if you don't know what data sets exist in connection with the challenge, you might consider instead going to a site with data on that topic and exploring around. that way you're more likely to stumble upon something that you didn't know existed in the first place. And then slide 18 is kind of builds on the previous slide. A data set like data.nasa.gov has a large diversity of data, and so it's better for like string matching in terms of finding things. Something like the Mars weather website or the Mars weather API, it's better to go to a web page just for that topic and explore around.
Я зелений не їм.
А ти так говориш, якби то було таке прагнення. Зелень корисна. А чому ти їш?
Someone,
Сам ти а чому?
Салат дома, руку я ніколи не їм.
can you mute everyone else maybe? I'm not sure if I can do that from my side. Okay. And then some comments on open innovation specific sites, API.nasa.gov. It's worth pointing out again that API.nasa.gov doesn't host every single NASA API. It just hosts the simplest ones to like get started with. And so you can find lots of other NASA APIs in other places. And data.nasa.gov can sometimes be a good place to find additional, slightly more complicated APIs. And then for code.nasa.gov, code.nasa.gov has most of the things on github.com/NASA, but it doesn't have every single project. And likewise, GitHub doesn't have every single project that's on code.nasa.gov. So it might be worth checking in both places, not just one. And then for data.nasa.gov, it's worth noting that file formats, well, when you go to the search page for data.nasa.gov, there will be a sidebar that will have things like file format, tags, and types. Those things are all like metadata populated by people, and so a lot of times people want to actually populate those tags very well. So if you like click on a tag, you won't get back every single data set that might match that theme or that topic. It'll just be the things that people have actually tagged by hand with that topic. And so don't think if you like click on things in CSV format, you will get back every single CSV file. You'll just get back a selection of them that have been human tagged as a CSV file.
If someone has a question, maybe they can ask in chat or just.
Yeah, sure. I can bring up the chat here, see if there's any questions. Okay, I'm gonna go on to the next slide. So,
hello.
Yep.
I'm Sadman from Bangladesh. I have a question about API connection. Can you please help me about that?
Okay.
So my question is about I'm using Unity for making a game,
Okay.
but I don't know how to connect API with my that game. I didn't use before API key with Unity. So can you please actually help me out from there?
Yeah. So, are you saying you're not sure how to make the call to the API such that you include the key?
I use that, but I'm not getting any information. I can pull any. I can't pull any information from the NASA side. So I'm actually curious about that because I'm using 3D models from the NASA side, but I can't use API from the NASA side because they're showing some errors, and I have already checked many scripts from the Unity documentation, and I have watched several tutorials on that, but I can't actually found any solution from there.
So, when you call the when you call the API in your browser window, does it does your API call work successfully, or do you still have problems?
Actually, didn't understand your question. Will you please say it again?
Yeah, sure. So, does the problem that the API call doesn't give you back
Yes.
data?
Actually,
Okay.
I'm not getting any data from NASA side. I cannot pull from the through Unity actually.
So is the problem that the API call is not working, or is the problem that you can't get it to work inside of your project?
There is no problem with the actually API call. I cannot actually install it into C# or Unity. It's actually my software problem that I don't know the right process to install it in my software, or I don't know how to use it in Unity. So I didn't find any documentation or tutorial video. So I want to use that API in my game. So how can I actually use that was my question.
Okay. Yeah. So so I would have to see your code, I think, because it seems like your problem is that you don't know how to call the
yes.
Okay. Yeah.
So actually, how can I send you my code?
Yeah. Why don't you hang on the call, and you can share your screen, and by that way share your code once you're finished with the presentation. I just got one more slide here, so.
Oh, so I have to share my screen?
Oh, well, hold on to that a little bit. Yeah. 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 So that's my goes here. To go back to the presentation, just to close it out. Before we jump back to questions, I guess. I have one example here going through one of the NASA space apps. So the challenge was you were on an astronaut or robotic mission, lead tasked with bringing back specimens from the moon to Earth so you could study them further. So you have to evaluate lunar samples quickly and decide which ones to keep, which ones to and not bring back. So the task is, how do you distinguish between viable samples and non-viable samples? So this Space Apps Challenge has been posted, has some example, the data sets and where to find information. That's really good, and I would suggest starting there. But some other suggestions is that it's probably always a good idea to spend a small amount of time looking for the organization pages of NASA groups that do work related to that challenge. So there's sometimes like different groups at different centers with slightly different names that work on similar stuff. So if you search for Moon Rocks Johnson Space Center, you'll find out that the name of the group that works on that type of stuff is called the Astro Materials Group. And so they have a database, it turns out, of every single moon rock that was brought back from the moon. That might be a very excellent database to use as far as this project. And then also, you may want to search for papers or description of past NASA studies that are very closely related to the challenge. So this challenge is all about sample selection. And so if you go to SDI, which holds scientific papers that NASA has published, and you search sample selection, one of the top results you get back is this paper called GeoLab Concept: Importance of Sample Selection During Long Duration Human Exploration. So it's basically what a lot of people have put down in this scientific paper that very closely relates to this NASA Space Apps challenge. So these are like really good things to like spend some time going through to learn about how people at NASA have thought about and worked up potential solutions to these types of problems. And that was my very last slide. Does somebody have any questions? Oh, I see one in the chat here.
Yes, sorry. I have. Can I ask you?
Oh yeah, go ahead.
During your preach, I was thinking, is it possible to get sub-site of NASA, source code of, I know that NASA website is built mostly on Drupal, and I have some experience with Drupal. I want to contribute to my implementations that we did last year during that challenge, and maybe it's possible to be a contributor and get some code samples of Drupal website using by NASA sites, or no? Sorry, you are muted. I cannot hear you.
Have it there. Thank you for calling that. If I go to the NASA site on GitHub, or the account on GitHub real quick here. And let me share my screen again. Okay. And everybody see my screen again here?
Yes, your screen is visible.
Okay. So like I'm not sure about like Drupal, but I team uses like this thing here called the like NASA web design service. And so this is a way to build styles and components for front-end websites. And so we used it to build the new version of API.nasa.gov, which will come up shortly here. And so if you like want to contribute like PHP or some JavaScript or CSS code to a NASA NASA web page where repositories are on the public github.com. Like that's a repository here that like gets used by multiple public-facing NASA web pages, and also like if I go to the general NASA account here, two websites that like my team does that we regularly like pull on our code.nasa.gov and like API .nasa.gov, both which have public repositories on GitHub, which doesn't directly answer your question, but it kind of like maybe gives you some ideas maybe.
Yeah, it was very clear.
Okay. And then it looks like someone else had a question in the chat. It says, is there any possible way to integrate analysis of data sets from CDAS or other imagery software with application? So like what is like CDAS? Can someone summarize that for me? I'm not familiar with that.
Is anyone have another question?
Yes, I think I have a question. Hello.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Hello, I'm Fardin Hossain from Bangladesh. I have a question about my project.
Okay, go ahead.
I have completed my own project successfully. Project is about space exploration. I made some planets and I used some textures from NASA's site. But other texture I built by myself, used my own algorithm like planet rotation, etc. Is it okay? All of data have to be from NASA website or my?
So are you like saying is it okay to like use data that is not from a NASA site? Was that your question?
Yeah. That was my question.
Oh yeah. I mean, if you like can use things like from other sites and combine that with NASA data, I think that will be great. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
And I see the person who responded to my previous question about CDAS, and they say in the chat CDAS, which is both for analysis of the ocean NASA datasets. So I am not familiar with those, so I'm not sure how to respond to that question, but I would look at these two things that I'm putting in the chat, which I'll